Hey, everybody. This is Maxine Taylor with another edition of Move Into the Magic. And I am so thrilled to present to you my guest today, Dr. Gloria Kaye. And some of you know who she is because, first of all, you've gotten a copy of her latest book. Isn't that a gorgeous cover? It's entitled Healer's Hands, Healer's Heart. This is a natural healer. When she speaks, you will feel her energy. You'll know that she comes from the heart. She is an energy specialist, a hands-on healer, and a practitioner of yoga therapy, and she's done this for over 30 years. It is my joy to present to you Dr. Gloria Kaye. Welcome to Move Into the Magic, Gloria.
Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to this interview.
Well, I think our audience is also. So let's just jump right in. How did you know that you were a healer?
Well, when I was in my teens, I was sitting with a girlfriend and I watched the structure of her face change as we were talking. She was having a very tough time emotionally. And just as we sat together, I watched the transformation. Now, that's my earliest recollection. I'm not saying that I didn't do things before that. And I still didn't know I was a healer until I was in my late 20s. Just assumed everybody knew what to do with a given condition. So I later found out that that was not the case. And seriously, oh, you have a knee issue? Let me take a look at that. Always knew what to do. Always knew what to do. And so in my late 20s, I got reacquainted with a dancer that I had worked on. And she said, remember 2 years ago when you worked on my foot? I had injured my foot. I said, I sure do. She said, well, guess what? It hasn't hurt me since then. And that's really when the light bulb went on for me. Yes. So from that incident, I still wasn't really convinced that this was going to be my life, my life path. But sure enough, more people came and I was able to look at these structural imbalances and correct them energetically. So the system that I've developed really has to do with structure. And so when I see the structure in the face that's a little awry, or the structure in the back, or the knee, or whatever, I take that into account when I make my assessments as to where to place my hands, which brings up another issue. A lot of people have energy in their hands. They can feel energy. People are always telling me about isolated incidents in which, they've healed people. For me, the more important factor is where to place the hands. And for me, I seldom go to the main area of distress. I usually work around it. I enliven the body. And then once I determine the origin of the pain, I will go there. And the origin of the pain is not always where it manifests.
Yes. Yes. Well, I want to hear everything you have to say. But there is one question that I want to ask on the part of other healers.
Yes.
That is, a lot of healers that I have met, people who are natural healers. Did I lose you, sweetheart?
Right here.
Okay. A lot of people who are natural healers are holding back. And they're holding back because they themselves have illnesses, so they have physical problems, and they are under the impression that if they have an issue, then how could they possibly be a healer? So the question is, can you heal yourself?
Oh, that's quite a question. So let me break it down. Yes, I think a lot of people are concerned about the energy they might have and what to do with it. And I think sometimes people are fearful of the energy. It's a safe modality. And in terms of not being able to heal someone else because you have a health issue, I don't buy that one at all. Don't buy that one at all. Now, can I personally heal myself when I have structural imbalances? I haven't figured that one out. So the answer is no, I'm not able to heal myself if I'm dealing with a structural imbalance. However, if there's an issue, an external one, like an abrasion or eczema or a mosquito bite, oh, no problem at all. That's external, and it doesn't have to do with the structure. So I know there are so many modalities for healing, but the one that I have honed has to do with a structural balance. So actually, when I lay my hands on someone, I'm addressing the ligaments and the muscles that are holding the structure in a skewed manner. And so whether it's cancer or a migraine or a bellyache or a bunion, I look at the structural imbalances. So I want to talk about bunions for a moment because people are absolutely astonished when I say I can help with bunions. So let's make sure we all know what a bunion is.
Yeah.
It's an outgrowth, and it's usually on the big toe. And it can be very painful. So what I do when someone comes to me and they'd like me to work on a bunion, I look at their back, I look at their knees, I look at the arches of their feet. I look to see what is causing this bunion. And usually there's an imbalance in the body. And so I'm able to correct that. And then I actually lay hands on the bunion. So in a way, it's entering through the back door. I look at the structure. What is causing this issue?
Very, yes. I love that.
You
You go to the source, you go to the cause, you don't treat the symptom.
Exactly, exactly. So I enliven the body and then I will go to the symptom. But there's, in my opinion, it's rare that I go right to the area of distress. Recently, I was working with a little schnauzer that had arthritis in the hind end and mainly arthritis in the hind end. And in that case, I was moved to go right to the legs. The dog was lethargic, and it didn't seem useful to enliven the body. I just really needed to deal with that particular issue. And last night, I got some really, really good news. Bobby is up and around, so I'm delighted with that outcome. So it works for animals, it works for the elderly. I love working with children. Two of my favorite children that I helped were really quite compromised. The first one wasn't thriving and was really in jeopardy. I also want to mention that much of my work now is remote. And so with this little boy, I was able to work remotely. He was in Oklahoma City, sorry. And he wasn't thriving, projectile vomiting, just very, very compromised. Anyway, long story short, the last picture I have of him, he's in a Boy Scout uniform and absolutely thriving. So the picture was maybe 3-4 years after I initially worked on him. So this also indicates that the treatments hold. So I was delighted with that outcome. The other child that just touched me so deeply, she was affected by the DPT shots, the childhood DPT shots, and she lost her ability to walk. So she came to me with a walker, and very pleasant child. Mama took her all over, and I worked on her spine. And the way I did it, I positioned her over a sink because we know that kids like to splash in the water. So there she was, splashing in the sink, and I was working on her spine. Anyway, within 3 or 4 sessions, she was walking, and she was, well, both of them were absolutely delighted. One of the things that Mama commented on is that she seemed very heavy when she picked her up. And this definitely is the case with animals and little ones. You probably wouldn't want to pick up an adult, but everything seems to weigh heavier. I don't know if it's because the body's relaxed or something else is going on, but definitely that is something that is pretty consistent.
I love your stories, and I hope you keep on with them. I've got a couple of more questions, though, that I would like to ask you that I'm asking for our audience, both our listening audience and our viewing audience. Now, can you teach what you do? There are many people out there who would love to just be able to lay on hands and heal the planet.
Exactly. The answer is I absolutely can teach much of what I do. And I would say I can teach to very interested parties. So I'm starting a 6-month training program. It will be held here in Santa Barbara, and eventually it will go online. Something came up actually yesterday. Someone in Seattle wanted very, very much to do my training, but she has little ones, and it just wasn't a reasonable thing for her to come out here.
Yeah.
So I'm going to Seattle. So I'd like your listeners to know, have syllabus will travel. Yes, yes. And so the way I have it organized here, it's once a month for 6 months. But when I'm in Seattle, I will do 3 days back to back. And so it will be 2 times that I go to Seattle. And as I said, have syllabus ready to travel. Yes.
Well, keep in mind that
Yeah.
our conversation that we're having, girlfriend to girlfriend, is going to be archived forever. And so what you're sharing now, you may want to expand on that. By the time somebody watches this or listens to it, you may have been traveling all over the place. Or you may have turned into a techno geek, and you've mastered the art of video programming, and you're doing it online, because many people will do it online as you get better and better with technology.
I spoke to my friend yesterday. The original plan was for her to attend the workshop, and she would do the video for me. So the intention was to have it online. If it's not the 6 sessions, then it'll be 5 sessions. I mean, I know what I'm doing. So when I say, you know, I'm testing the waters, I'm testing the techno waters, and I know how people respond to this. And the answer is absolutely, people can learn what to do. Are they all going to be healers? Probably not, because that brings up another issue.
Yes.
As a healer, this is how I've committed my life. I have committed to helping people spread the word and to help people out of their pain so that they can actually have pain-free lives.
Yes.
And so that's what this healer does. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to have this kind of commitment in order to use the techniques that I'm teaching. I do want to say that I taught first-year medical students at UCLA, and this was very interesting. It was an elective course, and those students who came forth had a strong interest in learning about these techniques. Could they do it? Absolutely. They could bring energy to their hands, and they learned about placement and assessment, and many of the things that I'll be including in this 6-month course. So it's doable. And the fact that these scientifically oriented young people chose this really indicates that times are changing.
Oh, they really, really are. It's so exciting to be alive now and be on the cutting edge of combining the spiritual and the scientific. So I got more questions for you, though, Gloria. I notice everybody has their own healing modality, for lack of a better word. We're all given gifts. And tell us how your technique differs from other techniques that you may have studied. There are many, many modalities out there. I love some of them. Some of them I do not resonate with. But tell us what makes your approach different.
Absolutely. Well, number one, I try to look at the mechanics of the body. So yes, I mean, it's all from a higher source. I'm the conduit. I am the conduit. And when I do my teaching, I really stress that with my students. They're conduits. And they're conduits just the way they have a certain eye color. You know, it's not anything that's negotiable. And if they try to be, really seriously, if they try to be more than a conduit, everybody's in trouble. So at one point, years ago, I really dealt with the ego of my students. So I'm very careful now to put that right out there, that it's not you. It's not you. You're here because you want to learn certain techniques. So what is different from what others do? Number one, the mechanics, okay? Mm-hmm. And for years, I wanted to be the bridge between the medical community and the more esoteric community. Well, I don't care anymore. But that was my mission, my absolute mission. I was just driven to have physicians take notice. I want to backtrack many, many years.
Please.
I used yoga as a treatment modality with substance abuse. And I had been doing it, I don't know, 5, 6 years. I went to a medical conference, and I stood up in my jean skirt. I was kind of an old hippie at the time, we know that. And I told them about how successful I was using yoga as a treatment modality with heroin addicts. Well, the place just broke into this laughter. And I thought, my goodness. This was not what I had intended. Anyway, I meekly sat down. However, that's not the end of the story. The end of the story is in the late 70s, I had over a $200,000 grant looking at the effects of yoga on substance abuse. Guess what? They stopped laughing. Yes, they stopped laughing. I mean, when the government gets behind you and you're able to demonstrate, this was a research project. I had 240 people in the study. I had a staff of 17. I created all kinds of evaluations. I used standardized tests. I'm a good researcher. I actually am a good researcher. And so I was able to set up a program that was very, very solid and got good results. I had, at least 10 publications from that. And I had 8 yoga teachers working for me. So they learned the techniques, yes, of how to approach individuals who had this strong background in drugs.
Wow, that's marvelous. That's marvelous. Well, I want to bring this down now to the very practical, because I know that many of the people in our audience want to know, first of all, how to get in touch with you and what happens at a treatment. So first of all, I'm going to give out your contact information. Those of you who are interested in contacting Gloria Kaye, let me give you her website. I know that you'll be interested. It's Dr. spelled Dr. Gloria Kaye with an E at the end, KAYE.com.
Yes.
GloriaKaye.com. Now, let's say that somebody calls you up. They've heard about you. They've read your book. They love the book. They want a healing. They want a session with you. And they know that they might need more than one, which is fine. They call. They get an appointment. Tell us how you proceed from there. How many sessions do they need? How long does each one take? And how long does the influence of the session last?
Good. Okay. I don't like to play guessing games. So my first question is, how would you like me to help you? All right. That's what I asked. How would you like me to help you? Basically, what do you expect from me, and what would you like to change in your life? So based on that information, I proceed. I'm doing many, many remote healings now. Yesterday, I did a remote healing on someone who has a positional vertigo. So I just want to talk about that for a moment. So
Please.
when I talk to someone or someone tells me what their issue is, even if I don't see them, I get a psychic impression. And I really trust that impression. And many times I will draw a very simple sketch of what it is that I'm seeing. Now, the sketch is quite interesting because sometimes the sketch reveals things that the potential client doesn't even know exist. So more recently, I worked on someone who had a digestive complaint, and I did my sketch and I said, would you please go to the mirror and check to see if your shoulders are level? And she said, oh, no, they're not. The right one's higher than the left. I said, okay. And I could see that in my sketch. So I wasn't at all surprised. I said, would you like some help with that? And she said, sure. So what I did was heal from the sketch. I use a pendulum very frequently, and sometimes I just project energy. But so I worked from the sketch, and I said, because I could tell when it was resolved, I said, okay, please go look in the mirror again. And she looked and she came back and she said, it's a miracle because her shoulders were level. So the sketches give me a lot of information that the client does not necessarily know about. All right. And how this particular issue relates to a digestive complaint, I can't say, but I can say the more balance you have in your body, the more likely the energy it will move to where it needs to go and move more freely. So, so anyone who is interested in being pain-free or symptom-free or having a resolution to these issues, it's not always 100%. Please feel free to call me, contact me. Also, if you don't mind, Maxine, I'd like to give out my healing line so people can call me directly.
Yep.
And that's 805-701-0363. And I return all calls. So don't hesitate to give me a call at that number. It's also on my website. I will say it again, 805-701-0363. So a person, to answer your question, a person will call and I'll say, how would you like me to help you? And we establish that. And I can, and after that, we set up an appointment. So the initial contact is just to assess the problem, which is, a very brief conversation. And then I schedule a 1-hour appointment and we decide on the time. And I treat these remote healings just as if someone were right in front of me. So it's an appointment time. I will call you at so-and-so and please be ready to receive this energy. So we talk further. I then do the sketches, or if I don't feel it's necessary, I can just get in there and send energy. I will begin to do that. So the woman yesterday with the positional vertigo, she had heard a radio show and called, and I said, yes, it doesn't seem like a very, I know it's a problem for you, but it doesn't look as if you have a lot of physical issues. So we set up a time. I worked on her yesterday. I worked on her neck. I worked on her sinuses, her ears, and she had been all over. So today when I call her to find out how she's doing, I'm hoping that I get a very good report.
Oh, I'm sure you will.
Okay.
I mean, your track record speaks for itself, Gloria. You'll receive a marvelous report.
Well, I help so many. I mean, there are very few people I don't help. Let's put it like that. So, I don't know, maybe 1 in 500 I'm not successful with. Does it mean that the symptoms will be completely removed? No, but frequently that's the case. So yesterday I saw someone, I had worked on her bunions maybe 6-8 months ago, only twice. And she said the treatment held. I can walk around. I don't have pain. So it depends. Many times the treatment will fully hold, but if not, then the individual just needs a tune-up. And the way I like to describe that is the body needs to have more education about what balance is and how to create balance.
I want to ask you a question for me that I use. Well, I want to find out how you handle this. I have observed that illness in the body starts with the thought, the thinking, and illness is an emotion-based situation. There are issues that can be that manifest in the body. Your ability, your amazing ability to heal, works on the physical. We know that. My question to you is, have you found that it also works on the emotional? Does it actually work on get to the cause? Because in my book, if the healing holds, you have not just eliminated symptoms, you have eliminated cause.
Yes.
Response, please.
Yes, well, it depends on the issue. I mean, someone who's been in an automobile accident, would you say that this is an emotional thing? Yes, the response to the injury is an emotional thing, but I don't think emotions cause that, Now, there are certain diseases that I do believe there's an emotional overlay. By the way, I do work with depression using the facets in the skull. So depression, I address the facets in the skull. With anxiety, I address congestion that is usually present mid-back. So those are two emotional components that I will directly address. But, cancer patients, for instance,
yes,
there's so much information about cancer patients, the different kinds of cancer, whether there's an emotional overlay initially. Who's to say? I think it's a very individual thing, And I think to expect people to be responsible for those emotions prematurely, no, I don't go there.
right.
What I do is to look at the physical, all right, and then watch how the emotions change. But I think it's too much, asking someone too much to address the emotion. I'm going to go out on a limb because I don't like to generalize, but breast cancer patients are a very specific breed.
Yes.
And they're usually very, very kind people, perhaps too kind, And so, that's something that I do address, but I address that after the cancer is either resolved or in remission. Because to present that to someone, making them responsible and quote unquote bad because they're nice people, I won't go there. Now, I've been doing yoga for many, many years, and my former teacher used to say, don't worry about your spirituality, just get healthy, So yeah, very interesting concept. So I say, let me help you get healthy, and then we can look at some of these emotional components.
I hear you.
Like with digestive complaints, many times, yes, there's an emotional overlay, but you get someone feeling better, and guess what? That emotional overlay is much reduced. And now I originally started working with a clinical allergist over 30 years ago, and she taught me how to use the pendulum. So I use a pendulum to determine food sensitivities. I mean, people come to me with terrible digestive complaints because they, quote unquote, are having a healthy diet. Now that means they might be having wheat or soy or, all the things that were supposed to be wonder foods that in fact can be very problematic.
Yeah.
So what I do is to look at the foods and soften the intestines. So in that case, I usually have someone lie down in my office and I put my hand on their belly and we talk about things. So also one of the things my teacher used to say is yoga is not such a serious business. So, in that regard, healing is not such a serious business. So I'm not at all pious about this. I mean, I revere it, but I'm not pious. So, this person might be lying on the sofa and I'll talk to them about their belly and they might have a little bowel sounds or some things that might be a little embarrassing. So what? And then I'll ask them if they're willing to make some dietary changes based on what it is that I'm finding. And usually by the time someone comes to me, they've consulted a number of other practitioners. So when they get to me, they're ready to change.
Let me ask you this, Gloria. Gosh, I could sit and listen to your stories all day. In your opinion, how does healing work?
Oh my. Okay. I believe things change cellularly. Can I prove it? No. But let me give you some examples. In the case of arthritis, when the arthritis disperses and it's no longer present, either people have greater mobility or they have an X-ray. This also works for bone spurs. They're just not present. And what I think happens is they get dispersed. And if there's a kind of alchemy, it's not like the body is reabsorbing stagnant cells, not at all. I believe the cells change and the issue goes away. So that's the case with arthritis, with unwanted cancers, for instance. Many cancers will resolve. And I don't want to give false hope to any cancer patients, but I've been quite successful with a number of cancer patients. So that's what I believe happens with those kinds of conditions. A person's in an accident and they tweak their neck, they tweak their back, they tweak their knee. Well, in that case, what I do is try to reorganize the cells in the body. So there's reorganization. So instead of having, your neck skewed to one side, using the energy, I'll be able to help you be more structurally balanced. So that's reorganization of the cells. The other case is rejuvenation. So you have an open wound and you can see that close. Well, in my opinion, that's rejuvenation. So that's how I think it happens, all right? If you go to my website, you'll see some images of my hands. My hands, I don't know, did you take a look? Were you able to find that?
In your book. It's all in your book. It was fascinating. The pictures, the drawings that you do,
Yeah,
and
right.
the photographs of the light coming off of your hands. I was going to ask you if you would elaborate on that.
Sure. A physicist using infrared was able to capture the energy from my hands. Now, that in itself was monumental. But what we were able to determine is that the energy actually corrects issues. So the woman that I was working with had a sinus condition, and we were able to see the energy being transferred to her. But what we saw also was a clearing of her sinuses. So again, using infrared, we were able to see that the sinuses cleared.
Let me tell you what I think you do.
Oh, please. That would be very helpful, Maxine.
I think the love that you come from is palpable. And when you lay your hands on someone, it is your love, which is of the divine, of divinity, is what heals them. I always have said that the greatest healer on planet Earth is love, the greatest antidote. And somebody raised their hand in my class and said, well, what about if you break your leg? I said, the love coming from the doctor who sets your bones can heal that, because there's so many times when bones are set and they're not aligned correctly. Looking at those pictures, I saw the love of spirit not only coming from you, but leaving its mark
Yes.
on the people you work on. And that's my story. I'm sticking to it because
Okay.
that's the greatest healer of all.
Absolutely. I'm in agreement with you. I'm in agreement with you. And at the same time, because of my research and my prior commitment to, bridging the gap with the esoteric community and the medical community, I didn't go in that direction. And this recently came up. I absolutely agree with you. Love is the biggest healer. And within that, there are techniques that you can use.
Yes.
I'm absolutely in agreement. But I don't want to do a lecture at our local hospital based on the healing power of love. Right. I would not be well received. And when I communicate, I like to communicate with I like to communicate with my audience.
Yes.
And so I assess my audience. You know, what really do they want to hear? How will they be able to understand what it is that I'm trying to say to them?
Yes.
Depends.
You have to speak their language. I understand, because they can hear it if you're using their verbiage.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
You're saying the same thing in a different way. It's like the language of love. Some people think love is money. Some think that if they buy you flowers, it's love. Others just if they just love you. Everyone has their own language, and I think you're brilliant for assessing your audience and phrasing it so that it's not the Tower of Babel, but that it's well received, and you are well received. And I think that again it comes from a very logical place. It comes from a very loving place.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. That's why you're my guest on my show. Now, would love to ask you. You have treated so many different issues. You talked about cancer. Is there one particular type of cancer that has intrigued you, or maybe surprised you in the way that you've been able to improve the condition?
Well, again, not to give any false hope, but I've been very successful with women who have had breast cancer and a gentleman who had breast cancer. You know, breast cancer among males is becoming an issue.
Yes, it is.
Yes. So for some reason, the cells are very volatile, so they can go either way. So, you know, with an energy, they'll accept the energy because of the volatility, right?
Yes.
What I believe happens. And many years ago, I was working with a hematologist oncologist, and she had a 74-year-old patient who didn't want any invasive treatment. So I worked on her in front of this physician, and within an hour, no, it was 45 minutes, we were able to note that her cancer shrunk from, was either 4.5 or 5.5 centimeters, I cannot remember, to 1 point. And she actually had it physically excised. But in that amount of time, the cancer was able to shrink. With animals, for instance, and even some people, the cancers will fall off of the animals. Yeah. So breast cancer patients are particularly responsive to this. There was a medical technician I worked with who was identified with breast cancer. I treated her. She went back to her lab and had 5 ultrasounds, couldn't find a thing. Yeah. So I'm not saying it's going to happen every time, but I've been pretty successful. And again, no false hope, you know. I mean, cancer is such big business now.
Yes, it is.
Big business. And it's kind of a pet peeve with me that it's such big business. But that's the way it is. That's the way it is.
Yes.
So I avoid going in that direction, and I avoid giving false hope.
Well, I hear exactly what you're saying. Tell me about how you use supplements, because I'm a big advocate of supplements and muscle testing the supplements, because you know every brand is different, every supplement is different. You use a Pendulum, I'm sure. How do you work with supplements, Gloria?
At this point in my career, and I'm not a homeopathic practitioner, excuse me. That was timely or untimely. Anyway, at this point in my career, I work mainly with the homeopathic cell salts. And I basically use just 6 of them. And they cover just many, many issues. So I'll just go through that very briefly if you'd like.
Yeah, I'd love that. Yes.
The homeopathic cell salts are different than homeopathic remedies that are unpronounceable. Okay?
Yes.
That's a very lay definition. But anyway, I'll just tell you the few that I do use. One is ferrum phosphate. if I were on a desert island, that would be my homeopathic remedy of choice because it heals. And I always keep that with me in case I'm exposed to something. So you can use it prophylactically as well as to treat an actual issue. You have the flu, you can use it. You have a cold, you can use it. You have a sprain, you can use it. It's a healing, it has healing properties. So that's the one that I would take with me. Magphos is another one. Excuse me. And that has to do with muscle spasms. So I don't use these things in a traditional way. So your homeopathic practitioner, might kind of cringe at the way I use these. But Magphos is fantastic. Many people wake up with backaches. Well, if you take a double dose of Magphos at night, you frequently will wake up feeling fine, no backache. Nat Mur addresses all water conditions. So people can have dry eyes, and with dry eyes, they'll have runny eyes. Give them Nat Mur. Sometimes that works. It also works on dry skin. It works on all kinds of digestive issues that have a water base. Let's see, Caliphos. Ooh, that would be my second choice for the desert island. Caliphos is amazing. It's great for sleep, and I have used it with so many women who were having hot flashes. So I'm sure that this is something I should spend more than just a moment on. It's Kalipphos. Kalipphos. And for issues related to hot flashes, night sweats, or an inability to sleep, or even depression, it's usually recommended to get 200X or 200C. You can get it online, or you can call my favorite homeopathic pharmacy and they'll even overnight it to you. Would you like that number? Shall I?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Yes. Okay. So it's Santa Monica Homeopathic Pharmacy, and the telephone number is 310-395-1311. Just tell them what you want and they will overnight it.
Wow.
So again, I want to just continue to address Caliphos and how it works. Theoretically, it works on the nervous system. So we're not talking about any kind of hormone replacement, to address the hot flashes or whatever the issues are. We're talking about the nervous system. And that's the way it seems to work. Again, would your traditional homeopathic practitioners cringe? Yes. But I just have found it to be so useful. Also, I was working with a woman who was bipolar, and she was a rapid cycler, and she responded well to Caliphos. So it's good for depression, and in her case, because she was a rapid cycler, it worked for her as well. So that's Caliphos. What else do we have? Calimure. Ooh, Calimure. This one I wouldn't take with me on a desert island, but it's so fine for mucus conditions. Kalimur. So, there's so many books on homeopathy.
Yes.
If your listeners are, and viewers, are interested, just pick up any small book on homeopathic cell salts. It's manageable. A true homeopathic practitioner usually comes with volumes, and they'll look to see if you have freckles and what your teeth are like, and how many packs of cigarettes you smoked 20 years ago, and all those kinds of questions. This is very simple and straightforward. So I feel comfortable making those recommendations, and also recommending that if you want further information, just about any book on the homeopathic cell salts will give you that information.
I started studying those, back in the early 70s, and I was very impressed.
Yes.
Of course, they didn't sell them at Whole Foods then. There was no Whole Foods. But we did send away for them, and I was incredibly impressed with them.
It's amazing. When I was first introduced to them, I was just in awe. I mean, how could it work this quickly? But
And,
it does.
and inexpensively.
And inexpensively. And I think that's one of the reasons they're not so popular. Nobody makes any money on them.
Thank goodness. Thank goodness. Well, let
And
me
you,
ask you this. You have had so many interesting stories, so many cases. We have enough time, if you would like, to tell us about perhaps your most moving or your funniest or your most fascinating case. And there may be more than one. So will you share that with us?
well, sure. In my book, I have a little picture of a monkey. This is a marmoset monkey, 7 months, 6 pounds. And the poor baby had an issue with his hind end. So I was working on him, and Mama, you'll see this in my book, Mama used to keep him in a pouch. So a real little thing. Anyway, long story short, because there was a problem with the hind end, the poor baby was constipated. So I worked on the monkey, and sure enough, there it was. I was successful all over my floor.
That's fabulous.
You like that little story? Oh, yeah. So I don't know, vegetable, animal, mineral. Give me a category.
Well, let's see. I'd love to know your greatest challenge, a client who was your greatest challenge. And I love success stories. And I'm sure you've had challenges in your career that turned out to be absolutely marvelous. Can you share one of those?
Well, I like working with undiagnosed or misdiagnosed issues. So I was working, yes, I do. And I'm a good sleuth. So I just continue to, I just continue to investigate. I don't give up until the client says enough. And in this particular case, this woman had dizzy spells. And normally I see my sessions last an hour, but because her situation was so chronic and I was working with her physician, we did several treatments at a half hour apiece. And she wrote the finest testimonial about how she was really able to resolve her issues. So it depends. I can't say, that there's any one that's outstanding for me. I do definitely enjoy working with children. I enjoy working with animals and seniors, who can't make decisions for themselves. Which brings me to another point. When I do remote healings, it's very important that I have permission from the person that I'm doing the remote healing on to actually do the healing. The exception would be animals or elderly who are demented.
And why do you require the permission? If a person has called you for a session, to me, that says you have their permission.
I agree with you, yes. But for someone to call me and say, would you please work on my aunt or yes, no.
Second hand, second party, yes, I see what you mean.
It's too profound. It's too profound. And the results are predictable. You're going to feel better. And so I want permission from that individual. I mean, maybe they don't want to feel better.
And that's another point. I'm sure you've encountered this. Some people get a lot of mileage out of having an illness. It gives them control. It feeds their need for negative attention. Especially if they have a diagnosis that says, oh, they're just on the way out and they live for 20 more years, the power and control. So a lot of people do want to hang on to their wounds because they get a lot of mileage out of it. So I hear what you're saying. That's a very good point.
Well, the only time that I wasn't able to help someone with arthritis was the following case. Woman was arthritic. She had her issues, but the family built a whole wing on the house for her.
Mm.
Well, let me tell you, she wasn't about to give that up. Well, she definitely had secondary gain, so I was not able to help her.
Well, let me ask you this. We've got about 5 minutes left. I know that you have been a student of yoga for so many years. How do you incorporate yoga into your healing practice?
Good question. So I've developed a system of therapeutic yoga stretches, and I apply specific stretches to specific issues. And in my book, I do cover some of these situations. So if you have a neck issue, a slow neck roll would probably be appropriate. If you have a shoulder issue, there are exercises for that.
Yes.
If you have digestive complaints, there are exercises for that. And most frequently, I hear about back situations. Back. And I do want to caution your audience to be very careful with your choice of yoga practitioner, particularly if you have a problem.
Yes.
You want me to say that one again?
I want you to elaborate. We've got a couple of minutes. That's very important.
Sure. Yoga has become so popular, and I call these yoga mills. Take a 3-month course and you're a yoga teacher. I don't think so. In many cases, it's just an accident waiting to happen. Mm-hmm. So I think, one should be very, very cautious. If you're young in your 20s and you want to do yoga just to enhance whatever else it is that you're doing physically, that's one issue. But, if you have a severe back issue, yes, it's important, very important, to have someone who's skilled. So I taught my yoga class this morning, and usually people who come to my class have issues. And I had a new student who had several back issues. And so we began just with a block on the sacrum, just relaxing into that, letting the body expand. And we stayed there for about 3 minutes. So there was no rush to get through, the yoga. There's so many different kinds of yoga and so many combinations of yoga Pilates and yoga ball and yoga, you name it. Mm-hmm. So the yoga that I do is based on traditional asanas. I maintain the integrity of the poses, and the adaptation is just the way that I approach it, which is very slow and particular to that individual.
Gloria, I can't thank you enough for being my guest today. You have been absolutely delightful. I hope you'll come back again.
Oh, sure.
And when you write your next book,
yes,
talk about that. Please stay in touch. And once again, to everybody out there, you can get in touch with Dr. Gloria Kaye at drgloriakaye.com. And I hope that all of you will join me next week when, once again, we move into the magic. Until then, this is Maxine Taylor reminding you that when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.
Beautiful.
Talk to you soon.
Thank you.